Hi all, this is Skate, and this is the M48 Patton. It's by far my favourite tier 10 medium. In fact, I'd go as far as saying it's my favourite medium tank in the game. I've played every medium tank in this game, yet when I come back and play this, I just feel at home in it. I feel comfortable, I feel like I can be versatile in it. I think it's a fantastic tank. Now, I've probably said nearly 100 times, I don't know. I've said a lot. I'm a big fan of tanks with gun depression. And this one really ticks that box because it has a rock-hard turret and brilliant gun depression. Actually, just a comment before we go any further. If anyone's wondering possibly why I'm breathing heavy, or heavier than usual, and my voice sounds a bit strange, I am either coming down with a good old-fashioned case of man flu, or I've developed some really bad random allergy all of a sudden. I don't actually know. But I wanted to explain it on the basis of I know my voice sounds a little bit different. It does in my head anyway. And aside from that, if I accidentally snivel or something while making this video, at least you know why. Won't make it sound any less disgusting. But at least you got some justification for the reason. But nonetheless, back on to Mr. M48 Patton. Now, I would say the biggest rival for this M48 Patton right now is the tank I made a video on 2-3 days ago, the E50M. Because that tank, as it stands, is an absolute monster. But for me, the M48 Patton still wins. I mean, don't get me wrong, the E50M is an absolute dream to drive. But the M48 Patton is also a dream to drive, and statistically there's not a lot in it, but the stats which are better on the M48 Patton throw me in favour of it because it correlates slightly better with my personal preferences in the tank. For example, if we were going to draw a comparative between the two, I mean, Patton's got slightly better DPM, but it's completely insignificant. 3,204 on this tank compared to 3,196. There's 8 damage per minute difference in it. You're never going to notice that really. Where you might start to notice a difference is the penetration values. On this tank, it has 250mm of penetration on the APCR, as with E50M has 245. They both have 300mm on the premium heat, and this is where it gets a little bit interesting and quite a big jump in favour of the E50M. E50M has 450 alpha with its HE ammunition, along with 60mm of penetration. That gives it 4,100 damage per minute with HE. This thing has 400 alpha with 53mm of penetration. What that basically translates to is 3,662 damage per minute. These are both with rammers, by the way. That's an extra 50 alpha a shot, though. That could make a big difference if you're up against something like a grill, a waffle, something lightly armoured. Now that in theory throws it in the E50M's favour, but again, it's not a huge difference between the tanks. When you're comparing gun handling, though, you're looking something like aim time, virtually identical on both tanks, there's very little in it again. Accuracy, 0.32 on this tank. That's a good accuracy. Accuracy on the E50M, 0.27. That is absolutely phenomenal accuracy. Yet, when it comes to on the move, this thing has 0.09 dispersion on turret rotation. E50M has 0.12, so it's thrown in favour of this tank when you're shooting on the move. All those things, in theory, throw you to wanting the E50M gun. Yet again, for me, I'd take that extra 5mm of penetration for virtually the same DPM, and 9 degrees of gun depression instead of 8. That can make a big difference, a really big difference actually. Now, the next bunch of stats comparing the tanks go entirely in favour of the E50M on paper. I mean, this has 48 km/h top speed, the E50M has 60. E50M's a heavy old beast though, so it takes a while to get it up to said speeds. So with that in mind, this has a better acceleration to its top speed than the E50M does. This thing also has slightly better traverse. And then we come on to the armour profiles. Now, Turret armor on this, only 178 on the front. Yet the E50M has 250 on the front. Yet I feel so much better and so much more confident with the turret on this thing than I would on the E50M's turret. And that's quite simply because this has a very, very nice rounded turret with a massive gun mantlet in comparison to the E50M's. I mean, the gun mantlet on this thing, 177mm thick, and then underneath it, the armor is 178mm thick. So you're already looking 300 without slapping on effective thicknesses. If you get shot in the gun mantlet on this thing, when you're using full gun depression, you're looking 400mm of effective thickness. Nothing's penetrating you through that gun mantlet. And with a little bit of movement, you really do get a lot of bounces on the gun mantlet. On top of that, the hatch, in my honest opinion, is insignificant, because when you are using the gun depression, you can barely see the hatch anyway. And the biggest weakness, in my opinion, is the cheeks right next to the gun mantlet. They, when using the gun depression, range from about 230 to 250, which isn't massive figures. But just on the outsides of that, if you hit that, you're looking in excess of 300, ranging up to 400, 500. So you've got that cheek on both sides of the mantlet where people will aim for and won't always hit you there. And the two areas next to it are so tough that you're just going to get some ridiculous bounces. But here's where that differs from the E50M turret. If you give a little wiggle on the E50M turret, it makes it a bit harder to penetrate those areas. In fact, it makes it quite challenging to hit those areas. But if you over wiggle on the E50M turret, you expose the side of the turret too much, and they are ridiculously easy to penetrate. As with this thing being nice and round, you can wiggle like mad on that turret and keep your effective thicknesses the same, which just makes those weak points, so to speak, incredibly troll and easy to produce bounces on. But here's a fun thing you don't often see people doing in this tank. Side scraping. Now, a lot of people, when they think best medium tank for side scraping, will always pick E50M. And to be fair, it's so straight on the sides, and the side is in line with the track, it's easy to line up, and it has 80mm of side armor. So for a medium tank, it's a good side scraper. This thing has 76mm, so it's only 4mm less than the E50M. The biggest difference is the M48 Patton hull is very well angled. It slopes inwards. What you're basically looking at is a tank which is harder to side scrape because it's harder to see the hull and line it up properly. And a lot of people don't think to side scrape a tank like this. But as a perspective, E50M with the gun in line with the inside of the track ranges from 300mm up to around 500mm thick effective thickness on the side of it. M48 Patton, angled at the same, gun in line with the inside of the track, starts at around 350 on the side and goes up to around 500 the same. The difference, however, is the front drive wheel on this, if you hit it in the right spot, is really easy to penetrate. But that's only a very small patch. So where this thing is a brilliant side scraper, it's harder to set up properly in comparison to the E50M. The E50M is much more user-friendly in terms of learning to side scrape, angling at the proper angles, and so on and so forth. The other thing you can't miss out is the front upper plate on these things. This has 110, E50M has 150mm. It's incredibly well angled on that 50M, to the point where you could look at this thing on the flat, and it has 350mm of effective thickness on its upper plate. This thing, because it's rounded, will range from patches about 240 up to 340. In other words, this thing, the Patton, in my opinion, in terms of medium tanks, is the absolute king of ridges, which I think, it's just popped into my head, I think that's what I called the last video on this tank. E50M is good on ridges, very good on ridges actually, but take these things off the ridges and the E50M is more forgiving, is more user friendly, as with this thing, It's a bit more challenging to accomplish those things when you're not on the ridge. But of course, when you are on the ridge, you've got the better turret armor, you've got the better gun depression. It shines on ridges, but it's weaker when it comes to the flat. Now, for most, that would make them go, yep, E50M all day long. For me, although statistically you could argue this is not as strong, I would pick this tank any single day of the week. I think it's an absolute beauty to drive. And if you saw my E50M video from the other day, you'll know full well I spoke very highly of that tank. Yet, I'll give you an idea how much of a good tank I think the Patton is, because it will always be number one for me. For me, its recipe, its design it's perfect for what I enjoy in the playstyle of a tank. It's mobile. It's got reasonable armor on the flat, which can be used, but it's not great. It's got a brilliant gun, and on ridges, it's just God. Oh, and one other thing. This has a better view range as well than the E50M. I forgot about that. 285 meters of view range in comparison to 274. It's not a big difference. It's only around 5% different. But spotting something a little bit earlier really can make a difference in a game sometimes. Anyway, that's enough waffling from me in this one. I will say one thing quickly before I leave. I only just noticed the AMX prototype is up for sale in the store at the moment. So I've got footage just sitting on my PC, which I haven't done anything with. So I'm going to bang a video out on that ASAP. Right, now I'm actually ending the video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.